She breaks down before her feet even touch the ground, gripping her bag like it's the only thing keeping her from falling apart. So why does the man waiting for her step closer instead of walking away? The stagecoach hadn't fully stopped when she tried to steady herself. One hand braced against the door, the other clenched tight around a worn cloth bag. Dust swirled across the platform, catching in her throat. But it wasn't the wind making her shake. A few men by the hitching post went quiet, watching too closely. He stood a few steps away, tall, still, not rushing in. When her boots finally hit the ground, she didn't look at him, only wiped her face and whispered, "I can leave in the morning." He didn't answer right away, just took off his hat, like the moment deserved more than words. "Would you stay? Or walk away before anyone asked why?" The stagecoach came in harder than expected, wheels rattling over the uneven boards, dust rising in a slow golden cloud that hung in the late afternoon air. Dry Hollow didn't see many arrivals this time of year. When it did, people noticed. Caleb Turner stood at the far edge of the platform, one boot set slightly back, hat low against the sun. He hadn't moved in the last 10 minutes. Just watched the road. Watched the coach grow larger. His hand brushed once over the front of his shirt, then stilled. Someone behind him muttered, "That'll be her." Another voice answered, quieter, amused, "Let's see how long she lasts." Caleb didn't turn. The driver pulled the reins, and the horses slowed with a tired snort. Wood creaked. Leather shifted. The coach door opened. A gloved hand appeared first, small and tense, gripping the frame. Then the hem of a travel-worn dress. Dust clung to it in layers, the color hard to name under the road. She stepped down slowly. For a moment, she didn't move. Her head stayed bowed, bonnet shadowing her face. One hand held a worn cloth bag close against her ribs, like it might be taken if she loosened her grip. The other hovered near the coach door as if she hadn't decided whether to let go. Then the wind shifted. Her face came into view. Tears had already cut clean lines through the dust on her cheeks. Not fresh, not sudden, the kind that had been falling for a while. Her eyes were red, rimmed deep, unfocused like she hadn't slept. The platform went quiet. No greeting, no smile, no searching look for the man she had come to marry. She just stood there, breathing uneven, shoulders trembling under the weight of the road and whatever had followed her off that coach. Caleb stepped forward. Not fast, not slow, just enough to close the space between them without crowding it. "Ivy Brooks?" he asked. She nodded once, small, controlled, like even that took effort. "I'm Caleb Turner." He didn't reach for her hand right away, just stood there, giving her a moment that nobody else seemed willing to give. A man off to the side let out a low chuckle. "She ain't even looking at him." Caleb ignored it. He took his hat off, more out of habit than ceremony, then reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a clean handkerchief, white, folded neat. He didn't offer it straight on, just held it slightly to the side, where she could take it without feeling watched. "You don't have to pretend," he said. No softness in the words, no pity either, just plain. Her eyes flicked up then, not all the way, just enough to meet his for half a second. Something in her expression shifted, not relief, not trust. Recognition, maybe, of what he wasn't asking her to do. She took the handkerchief. Her fingers brushed his for the briefest moment. Cold, tense. "Thank you," she said, voice low, worn thin from use. The driver started unloading a trunk behind them. It hit the ground with a dull thud. Caleb picked it up without looking, set it near his wagon. The wood creaked under the weight. "Ride's about 4 miles, he said. "Road's rough in places." She nodded again. He helped her up, careful with the space between them, not touching more than needed. She settled on the seat, bag still held tight. He climbed up beside her, took the reins, and gave them a light snap. The wagon rolled forward. The town passed slowly. A general store with its porch half in shade, the blacksmith wiping his hands on a rag, watching them go. A pair of boys leaning against a fence, whispering behind their palms. Ivy didn't look at any of it. She stared straight ahead. The wind pulled at the edge of her bonnet. A strand of dark hair came loose, brushing her cheek. She didn't fix it. For a while there was only the sound of wheels on dirt and the steady rhythm of hooves. Then she spoke. "I shouldn't have come." The words came out quiet, almost swallowed by the wind. Caleb didn't turn his head. "If you want," she added after a beat, "I'll leave tomorrow. I won't make trouble for you." The reins shifted slightly in his hands. That was all. He let the wagon roll over a rut, felt it jolt beneath them, then steadied it again. "Road goes both ways," he said. "Not agreement, not refusal, just the truth." She swallowed, fingers tightening around the bag. They rode the rest of the way without another word. The land opened up as they left town behind. Dry grass stretching out in long waves, a fence line cutting across the horizon. A small house set back against the slope, weathered but standing firm. Caleb guided the wagon toward it. As they pulled in, a loose gate tapped softly against its post in the wind. He climbed down first, set the brake, then turned to help her. She hesitated a second before placing her hand in his. Still cold, still holding something back. He didn't comment, just helped her down, then stepped aside to give her space. The wind moved through the yard, carrying the smell of dust and wood and something faintly warm from the house. Ivy stood there, looking at the place that might become hers, or might not. Caleb lifted her trunk again, carried it toward the door. He paused just long enough to glance back. She was still standing where he'd left her, not crying now, but not steady either. "House is open," he said. "You can come in when you're ready." Then he went inside, leaving the door ajar. The wind pushed it wider. Ivy didn't move right away. She stood there, the empty land behind her, the quiet house ahead. Then slowly, she stepped forward. The floorboards creaked under her weight as she crossed the threshold. The air inside was warmer than outside, carrying the faint smell of wood smoke and coffee left too long on the stove. Nothing fancy. Just a table, 2 chairs, a shelf with tin plates, and a basin near the window. Caleb had set her trunk near the stairs. He was nowhere in sight. Ivy closed the door behind her. The wind pressed once against it, then moved on. She set her bag down carefully on the table, didn't open it, just rested her hand on it for a moment, like making sure it was still there. A kettle sat near the stove, cold. She touched it, then pulled her hand back. Upstairs, a floorboard shifted. She looked toward the sound. Caleb came down a moment later, slower this time, like he was making sure she didn't feel cornered. He had taken off his coat. His sleeves were rolled to the forearms, dust still clinging to the seams. "There's a room upstairs," he said. "First door on the left. Window faces the fence line. Gets the morning sun." She nodded. "Water pumps out back," he added. "Kitchen's yours, same as mine." He paused, then added, "You can settle in. I'll be in the barn." Not a question, not an order, just giving her space. He stepped past her and out the door again. The sound of his boots faded into the yard, then toward the barn. Ivy stood alone in the quiet. After a moment, she picked up her bag and went upstairs. The room was simple. Bed, washstand, a chair near the window. Someone had laid a folded quilt at the foot of the bed, newer than the rest of the house. Care taken. She set her bag on the chair, opened it halfway, stopped. Her fingers brushed against something inside. She closed it again. Downstairs, the house held its silence. No ticking clock, no street noise. Just the wind moving past the walls. By the time the sun dipped lower, she came back down. The kitchen had already been wiped clean that morning, but she moved through it anyway. Checked the shelves, counted jars, measured what was left in a sack of flour by lifting it slightly with both hands. Not much. She found a small notebook near the shelf. Pages half filled, numbers written unevenly. Some crossed out, some repeated. She sat down, turned a page. Something didn't line up. She pulled the notebook closer, ran her finger down a column, paused, went back to the top, counted again. Outside, the barn door creaked open, bootsteps in the dirt. She didn't look up. Caleb stepped inside a few minutes later, carrying a metal bucket. He set it near the stove, washed his hands at the basin, then reached for a tin cup. He poured coffee from a pot that had gone lukewarm. He noticed the notebook in front of her. "Been meaning to fix that," he said. She didn't answer right away. "These numbers," she said finally, tapping the page lightly. "They don't match what's left on the shelf." He leaned one shoulder against the wall, watched her. "I track it same way every month," he said. She turned another page, then another. "You're losing money," she said. Plain. No judgment. Just fact. Caleb took a slow sip from the cup. Let the words sit. "Can you fix it?" he asked. She didn't look at him. "I can see where it went wrong," she said. "That's different from fixing." He nodded once. Silence settled again. Later, as the light faded, she lit a small lamp on the table. The flame wavered once before steadying. He sat across from her now, not too close. "Why'd you come out here?" he asked. No weight in it. Just the question. She kept her eyes on the page. "I told you," she said. "I needed a fresh start." "That all?" he asked. She stopped writing. For a moment, the only sound was the scratch of the pen fading. "I worked as a bookkeeper," she said. "Back east." He waited. "There was money missing," she added. He didn't move. "They said I took it." "You didn't?" he asked. She pressed her lips together. "I didn't take what they said I did." Not the same answer. He caught it, said nothing. "They let me go," she continued. "After that, no one would hire me. Didn't matter what I said." She finally looked up at him. "I wrote you because you didn't ask questions." Caleb held her gaze. "Still don't," he said. Another silence, thicker this time. She looked back down. Her hand moved toward her bag again, almost without thinking. Slipped inside just enough to feel for something folded. Then she stopped, pulled her hand back, closed the bag. Caleb saw it, didn't ask. Outside, a horse shifted in the barn. The wind picked up again, rattling the loose gate. "Stay a few days," he said after a while. "Decide after." She nodded. Not agreement, not refusal, just acknowledgement. Later that night, after he had stepped out to check the fence, she opened her bag again, carefully this time. From the bottom, she pulled a folded paper, worn at the edges, stamped with a dark seal. She stared at it for a long moment, then folded it again, tucked it deeper this time. Out of sight. Downstairs, the lamp burned low. In the yard, Caleb stood near the gate, pressing it once with his hand to steady it against the wind. He looked back at the house. Light still on in the window. He stayed there a moment longer than needed. then turned away. By morning, the wind had settled into a steady pull across the fields, the kind that didn't howl, just kept going. Caleb was already outside when Ivy came down, sleeves rolled, working the latch on the gate he'd pressed the night before. It held better now. She paused on the porch, watching him test it once more with his hand. He didn't look up, but he knew she was there. "We'll ride into town," he said. "Need supplies." She nodded, went back inside to grab her bag. The ride took close to an hour. The road cut through dry grass and low ridges, the earth packed hard from wagons that had passed before them. Ivy sat straight in the saddle, quiet, balanced, not new to it. Caleb noticed. Said nothing. Dry Hollow looked smaller in daylight. A row of buildings, each with a porch, each with someone watching. A wagon rolled past them slow, the driver tipping his hat to Caleb, then letting his eyes linger on Ivy just a second too long. They tied the horses outside the general store. The bell above the door rang when they stepped in. It was warm inside, the air thick with flour dust and the smell of cured meat hanging near the back. The shopkeeper looked up. His gaze moved from Caleb to Ivy, then back again. "Morning," Caleb said. "Morning," the man answered, slower. Caleb handed over a short list. Coffee, sugar, nails, lamp oil. The man took it, glanced at it, then moved to gather items one by one. Ivy stayed near the fabric shelf, ran her fingers over a roll of cloth, then pulled her hand back like she hadn't meant to touch it. Two women near the counter lowered their voices. "Not enough." "She's the one said. "From the coach?" Ivy didn't turn. Caleb set a few coins on the counter when the items were bagged. The shopkeeper counted them twice, slower than needed. "You hear anything from Kansas?" the man asked, not looking at Ivy. Caleb didn't answer right away. "No," he said. The bell rang again. A man stepped in, tall, coat too clean for the road, boots that hadn't seen much dust. He stopped just inside, eyes settling on Ivy like he'd expected to find her. "Well," he said, a small smile pulling at the corner of his mouth. "Didn't expect you to make it this far." Ivy went still. Caleb turned his head just enough to see the man. "Victor Hale," the man added, like a courtesy. "We've met." Ivy didn't speak. Victor took a few steps closer, slow, measured. His eyes moved over her face and then down to the bag in her hand. "Still carrying it around?" he said. Caleb shifted slightly. Not blocking. Just there. "You know her?" Caleb asked. Victor glanced at him, looked him up and down once, measured. "We did business," he said. "Back east." "That's so," Caleb said. Victor's smile didn't change. "Didn't end well." The door opened again. Sheriff Nolan Price stepped in, hat pushed back, coat hanging loose at the shoulders. He took in the room in one sweep, saw Caleb, saw Ivy, then Victor. "Morning," the sheriff said. No one answered right away. He walked over, slow, boots heavy on the wood floor. "You Ivy Brooks?" he asked. She lifted her chin just a fraction. "Yes." He nodded once, like confirming something he already knew. "Got word come through yesterday," he said. "Name matches one tied to a missing sum out of Kansas. Merchant filed it formal." Victor let out a quiet breath, almost a laugh. Ivy's hand tightened around her bag. "I didn't take what they say I did," she said. Not loud, not defensive, just placed between them. The sheriff watched her a moment, then looked at Caleb. "If she stays here," he said, voice even, "I'll have to report it up the line." The room went still. The two women by the counter stopped whispering. The shopkeeper set a jar down a little too hard. Caleb didn't move. He looked at Ivy, just once. She didn't meet his eyes. Her gaze stayed fixed on a point somewhere past the sheriff's shoulder, like she was already bracing for what came next. Caleb turned back. "She stays," he said. No raise in his voice, no edge, just clear. The sheriff's jaw shifted. "You understand what that means?" Caleb nodded once. "I do." Victor's smile widened just enough to show he enjoyed it. "Your place, Fufuwadte," he said to Caleb. "Your risk." Caleb didn't answer him. He picked up the supply bag, turned, and headed for the door. Ivy followed. The bell rang again as they stepped out into the light. Outside, the town felt different, quieter, watching. Caleb untied the horses without hurry, checked the strap twice before mounting. Ivy climbed up on her own this time. No help asked, no help offered. They rode out the way they came. The wind picked up again once they cleared the buildings. For a long stretch, neither of them spoke. Then, without looking at her, Caleb said, "You knew him?" She nodded. "Yes." He waited. "That's all you're telling me?" he asked. Her fingers moved slightly against the leather of the saddle. "For now," she said. The road dipped, then rose again toward the ridge that led back to the ranch. Caleb didn't push further. But something had shifted. Not in what he knew. In what he understood, he didn't. The wind rode with them all the way back. It pushed at their backs, then cut across their faces when the road turned. Dry grass bent low, whispering against itself. Neither of them spoke. The sound of hooves and leather filled the space where words might have gone. By the time the ranch came into view, the sky had shifted toward evening. The light stretched long across the fence line, turning everything softer than it felt. Caleb slowed the horse as they came through the gate. Ivy dismounted before he could step down. Her boots hit the dirt steady. No hesitation this time. "I need to see him," she said. Caleb tied the reins to the post. "You already did." She shook her head once. "Not like that." He looked at her then. Full. "Warehouse," she added. "That's where he keeps the ledgers." A pause. "You think you'll find something there?" he asked. "I know I will," she said. "Not hope, not guesswork. Something firmer." Caleb glanced toward the house, then back at her. The wind lifted a strand of her hair across her cheek. She didn't brush it away. "Light's going," he said. "Then we don't wait," she answered. He held her gaze a moment longer, then nodded. They didn't take the wagon this time. Rode faster. The road back to town felt shorter in the dark, though the land hadn't changed. The warehouse sat behind the general store, half hidden from the main street. One lantern burned near the side door. Dim. Enough to see shapes, not faces. Caleb dismounted first, checked the door with his hand. It gave under the pressure. Inside, the air was thick with grain dust and oil. Stacks of crates lined the walls. A desk sat near the back, papers spread in uneven piles. Ivy moved past him without waiting. Her hands went straight to the ledgers. She flipped one open. Pages filled with tight columns, ink pressed deep into the paper. She scanned quickly, turned another, then another. Caleb stayed near the door. Watched. "You see it?" he asked after a while. She didn't answer right away. Her finger traced a line halfway down the page. Stopped. Went back. "They changed the entries," she said. "Dates don't match shipments." She pulled another book closer, compared them side by side. "There," she added, quieter now. Caleb stepped closer. "Same amount," she said, tapping both pages. "Moved twice, once under my name." He looked at the numbers, didn't pretend to understand them fully. "But no proof," he said. She didn't argue, because it was true. The numbers told a story, just not one anyone else would listen to. A board creaked somewhere behind them. Caleb turned. Victor Hale stepped into the light, slow, hands loose at his sides. "Didn't expect you to come back tonight," he said. Ivy closed the ledger. "You knew I would," she answered. Victor smiled faintly. "You always did like to check the books twice." Caleb shifted his weight slightly forward. "She's leaving with proof," he said. Victor's eyes moved to him, calm, unbothered. "You got proof?" he asked. Caleb didn't answer, because he didn't. Victor stepped closer to the desk, picked up one of the ledgers, flipped it shut. "Numbers can say anything," he said. "Depends who's reading them." Ivy held his gaze. "You set me up," she said. He tilted his head like considering it. "You signed the entries," he said. "They were changed after." He shrugged. "Hard thing to prove." Silence settled heavy between them. Then Victor stepped back. "Take whatever you think you need," he said. "Won't change much." Caleb didn't move until Victor turned away. Then he reached for Ivy's arm, light but firm. "Enough," he said. She didn't resist. They left the ledgers where they were. Outside, the night had settled in fully. The lantern flickered once, then steadied again. The ride back felt longer this time. By the time they reached the ranch, the house stood dark except for a single lamp in the window. Inside, everything looked the same, but it wasn't. The next morning, no one came by. By afternoon, word had spread anyway. A rider passed the fence without stopping, didn't wave. 2 days later, the feed supplier didn't show. Caleb stood at the edge of the yard, watching the empty road longer than needed. Inside, Ivy worked at the table. The notebook was open again. Her handwriting sharper now, clearer. She had corrected every number, every mistake, every gap. She closed it gently, left it where he would see it. That night, she packed. Not everything, just what she had brought. The room upstairs looked the same when she finished. Bed still made, quilt still folded. Downstairs, Caleb stood near the door. He had heard her moving, knew what it meant. She stepped down with her bag in hand, didn't look at him right away. "I won't stay and cost you more," she said. He nodded once. "I know." A long pause. The wind pressed against the walls again, steady as before. "You don't owe me staying," he said. Same tone, same weight. She looked up then. Something passed between them. Quick, hard to hold. "Thank you," she said. For what, she didn't explain. He stepped aside, gave her the door. She walked past him, out into the night. The sound of her steps faded into the dirt road. Caleb stayed where he was, hand resting against the frame, not calling her back. The night carried her footsteps farther than he expected. Caleb stayed there until he couldn't hear them anymore. Then a little longer. The wind filled in the space she left behind, brushing past the doorway, moving through the house like it had before she ever came. He closed the door. The latch caught with a soft click. Morning came the same as always. Light through the window, coffee on the stove, work waiting. He went about it without thinking too hard. Fixed the fence line past the ridge, checked the trough by the far post, counted the feed sacks in the barn. One was short. He didn't write it down. Inside, the notebook still sat on the table where she left it. He stood over it a while before opening it. Her handwriting had changed the way the pages looked. Straighter lines, clean numbers, no guessing left in them. He turned a page, then another. Everything balanced. He closed it again and set his hand flat over the cover, just for a second. Later that afternoon, a rider came up the road. Not in a hurry, not trying to hide it either. Caleb stepped out from the barn, wiping his hands on a rag. The man pulled his horse to a stop near the gate. Older, face worn from the road. He held something wrapped in cloth. "You Caleb Turner?" he asked. Caleb nodded. The man slid down from the saddle and walked up slow, like he wasn't looking for trouble. "I worked for Hale," he said, "back in Kansas." Caleb didn't move. The man unwrapped the cloth. Inside was a ledger, thicker than the ones in the warehouse, edges worn, pages marked with use. "He keeps 2 sets," the man went on. "One for show, one for himself." He held it out. Caleb took it, flipped it open. The numbers told the same story Ivy had tried to point to, only this time they matched. Every entry tied to another. Names moved where they shouldn't. Money counted twice. Then pinned on someone else. Her name showed up in the margins, but not where it started. "Why bring this here?" Caleb asked. The man shrugged once. "Figured someone ought to know the truth before it gets buried." Caleb looked up. "Sheriff'll need to see it," the man added. Caleb nodded. By evening, the sheriff had come and gone. No argument this time. No warning. Just a quiet acceptance that something had been wrong, and that Ivy Brooks hadn't been it. The sun dropped low behind the ridge. Caleb stood in the yard, the ledger tucked under his arm, watching the light stretch across the land. She should have been there to see it, but she wasn't. He didn't saddle the horse, didn't ride out, just went back inside. Days passed. The feed supplier returned. Didn't say much, but unloaded the sacks like before. A neighbor rode by and tipped his hat again. The town settled, as if nothing had happened. Only the house stayed different. The notebook never moved from the table. He used it now, followed her numbers, kept them straight. One morning, just after sunrise, a sound broke the quiet. Wheels, not fast, not slow, just steady. Caleb looked up from the basin. The wagon came into view through the fence line. He stepped outside. Didn't rush. Didn't call out. Just watched. The wagon stopped near the gate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened. Ivy stepped down. No tears this time. Same bag in her hand. Held the same way. But her shoulders didn't shake. Her steps didn't hesitate. She walked up to the gate and pushed it open herself. Caleb didn't move from where he stood. She crossed the yard. Stopped a few feet away. The wind moved between them again, softer now. "I wasn't looking for a place to hide," she said. Her voice didn't break. "I just needed a place where I didn't have to lie." Caleb held her gaze. Didn't ask where she'd been. Didn't ask why she came back. He stepped past her, reached the door, and pushed it open. Inside, the table looked the same. The notebook still there. He walked to the shelf, reached up and took down a small iron key, turned back, held it out to her. "Then stay," he said. A beat. "As a partner." She looked at the key, then at him. Didn't take it right away. Instead, she set her bag down by the door. The same spot as before. The sound was soft, but it carried. Only then did she reach for the key. Their hands met again. This time hers wasn't cold, not steady either, but different. She closed her fingers around it. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Caleb nodded once, turned toward the window, like he had things to do. Outside, the wind moved across the land the same way it always had. Inside, something had settled. Not loud, not sudden, but real. Out on that stretch of land, nothing ever came fast. Not rain, not trust. Not the kind of quiet that settles into a place and stays. Caleb never tried to be the man folks expected. He didn't chase after her when she left, didn't demand answers when she came back. He just stood his ground and let the truth take its time. And Ivy, she didn't stay because she had nowhere else to go. She stayed because, for the first time, she didn't have to carry a version of herself that wasn't true. No pretending, no proving, just the weight of her choices and the chance to make new ones. Some people think love begins with big promises. Out there, it started smaller than that. A door left open, a hand not pulled away, a place where silence didn't feel like judgment. Maybe that's what it comes down to. Not who finds you, but who lets you be seen and doesn't turn away. If you had to choose, would you stay where you're understood or where you're simply accepted? If this story stayed with you a little longer than expected, there are more waiting just like it. Quiet, human, and worth the time. You're always welcome to come back and sit with them.